In this video, we're talking about aggregation and how you can actually use aggregations in SQL. Aggregation actually helps you summarize data based on rows. For example, you want to do some aggregations like sum, like mean, like max, like count, or you just want to kind of summarize and group your entire data set. And that is what aggregation is all about. So let's look at what aggregation is basically. So aggregation function in SQL are used to perform calculations on a group of rows. They return a single value that summarizes the data in the group. And some of the example of that, like I said, is count, which return the numbers of rows in a group. You can also do sums, which calculate the sum of a numeric column. You can also do average, which calculate the average of a numeric column. Then also mean to return the minimum values of columns, and max to return the maximum number of columns. These are just some few aggregation functions that you can actually use in SQL. If I jump into my Azure Studio and show you exactly what aggregations look like, let's say, for example, I'm just selecting my listing table. I just want to select my listing table, and I do select star from my listing table. So remember our Airbnb listing table, and I run this query right now. You can either click on run or you press F5. So if I run this query right now you can see how the tables look like. You can see the ID, you can see the name, you can see almost all of this and all the columns here. Now I can say maybe I just want to count the total number of rows in this table, right? And remember that the star that we have here simply means all, return all, right? So if I come here and I add an aggregations to this and I say count, then I open my bracket and then also close my bracket for count. This is also a form of aggregation. So if I run this right now, you will see that we have total number of 6,442 rows in this table. That's actually an aggregation. You know what we have been doing before, we are just returning columns and rows, but now we are kind of returning an aggregations of a particular table. Well, now let's go into solving some real life problems on aggregations related issues. Now in this problem solving, we'll be looking at how many Airbnb listings are there in Seattle. So we're basically counting how many listings do we have in Seattle. So the best way to do this is to kind of count the ID. So if I jump into my Azure Studio right now, so I can actually give this a name and say aggregation problem solvings, right? So now I just give you an example here, but I can come here and say problem solving one, aggregation problem solving one under aggregation, right? Aggregation. Let me just close this. Under aggregation. Okay, so under aggregation, right? So I'm looking at problem solving one under aggregation. So what I can do is, remember what we are looking for? We are looking for how many Airbnb listing are there in Seattle. That's what we are looking for. So if I do select, I usually select, and then I'm trying to look at maybe star, but I don't want to count everything because right now I'm looking at what is the unique number of a listing in that table, and that unique number is actually the ID, right? Because if I do select star from my Airbnb listing table, from my Airbnb listing table. Now, if I kind of run this now, you will see that we have an ID columns here. So this ID actually kind of tell me a unique listing. So a listing may actually be duplicated here. So that's why I can't count the entire thing like I did for the counting of previously. So if I really want to count the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do count. Now, what am I counting really? I'm counting the unique number of ID. So which ID is actually unique? So the aggregation function you can also use for that is also distinct, right? For those that are used to Excel or Power BI or some other business intelligence tool, I'm sure you've use count or distinct somewhere. So if I type distinct, and I also put ID, right? And also put ID here. So this is basically what I'm doing. So I'm doing a distinct count of ID, right? So what I just basically did is inside my ID, I just signify I want to count because I'm counting distance right now. So if I come here now and I run this query, so here you're going to see that I have 6,150 compared to what I have here before. So here, when I do a total count of all, I have 6,442, which means that some IDs are actually duplicated. But in the second problem solving case, I'm counting the unique ID. So because when I count the unique ID, that's how I kind of know the total number of listing. So that's why I did count of distance of ID. And that gave me 6,000. No, not 6,000. That gave me 6,150. So that is problem solving number one. Once you are done with this is how your query should look like. So we actually use distance to ensure that there are no duplicate value counts in ID, right? So let's go to problem number 2, right? Where we kind of compare the average price of listing in different neighborhoods. So you know we have average price in different neighborhoods. Now we want to compare the average price of listings in different neighborhoods. So we know we have listings in different places in Seattle. Now we want to compare the average price of this listing. So let me jump into my Azure Studio. Okay, so problem solving 3 here. So this is problem solving 2 now, which basically what we are doing is we are comparing the average price of listing in different neighborhood. That's what we are doing, right? So if I come down here, I can also start with select, right? Now, since we are only dealing with neighborhood here, basically I don't need to return all of the columns, right? I only need to bring in neighborhood. So if I type neighborhood, remember our neighborhood, then I put a comma. So I need 2 things actually. So I want to kind of compare the average price in all of each of the neighborhood. So I need the neighborhood and I also need price. So how can I get the average price of a particular column? So if I come here and I do AVG, so AVG in SQL is like an average. So it's like we are writing an average. So if I do AVG price, I think I have a column called price in my listing table. And I come back here and I just do from Airbnb BNB listing table. So if I run this right now, right? If I run this right now, it's going to give me error, right? And the reason why it's going to give me error is I am doing an aggregation. You know, the aggregation I did before, basically, I actually did it on the entire table, right? Which is just give me the total number of rows in the table, right? But the kind of aggregation I'm doing now is not actually on the table. I'm doing the aggregation on columns, right? Now I've selected 2 columns that I need. I want to do an aggregation on. So for me to return these 2 columns, because it's an aggregation, I need another function called group by, right? Because I want to group this my aggregation by something. It's like you're actually creating a pivot in Excel, a pivot table in Excel, or you even create a report in Power BI or some other business intelligence tool. When you drag something into your chart, right? That is actually a grouping. So you are summarizing. So for me to kind of summarize this perfectly, because I'm not counting the entirety, but I just need few columns here, then I need to introduce a function called group by, right? So what am I grouping this by? I'm grouping the price by neighborhood, just the neighborhood. Just neighborhood. That's what I'm doing. So I'm grouping the price by neighborhood. So if I run this query now, it should be fine. Perfect. Now you can see that it has actually aggregated and grouped these prices by neighborhood, right? You know, we have a lot of columns, a lot of rows in there. So you now summarize all of these rows based on the columns that I did. So this is the average price of this neighborhood called Stevens, average price of this neighborhood, average price of this, average price of this, right? Now, I can also round the number up into 2 decimal places using round as well. That's another type of aggregations. Let's say, for example, I want to put the number into 2 decimal places. So I can use another function here called round. I can use another function here called round. I close my bracket for this one, and I'm basically going to put a comma and just say 2. Now, what I'm doing is I'm rounding a number to a 2 decimal places using these round functions. That's basically what I'm doing. So basically, if you want to round your number up into decimal places, you can introduce round like I did right now, just to round it up into decimal places. So that is problem solving number 2. And what problem did we solve here? Maybe I should be putting the problems that we solve here. So we compare the average price of listings in different neighborhood, right? In different neighborhood. in different neighborhood, right? That's what we do. That's the problem that we solve in this case, right? Now let's go to problem solving number. But before we go there, this is how your query should look like. So we are selecting neighborhood, and we are doing an average price of all of this neighborhood from Airbnb listing table, and we group this by neighborhood because we are now summarizing. That is the reason why we actually need group by, and also introduce you to round, which actually can help you round the number to 2 decimal places using the round functions, right? Now, let's go into problem solving 3. Here we are looking for the highest and the lowest price among all listings, right? Let's say we want to see which of the listing has the lowest price and which of the listing has the highest price. This is what we want to explore in this aggregation problem solving. So let me jump back into my Azure Studio. So right here, we can already see the previous one that we did. So we see the average price by each of these neighborhood. This is their average price. 221, Steven is 221, Front is 214. So you can see this is the average price of all of them. Now let's kind of go into another problem solving right now. So I'm going to copy this comment and put this comment here. So this is problem solving number 3 right now. And then what I'm looking for here now is looking for, what am I looking for? I want to find the highest and the lowest prices among all listings. So this is what I want to do here. So I want to find the highest and the lowest price among all listings. Find the highest and the lowest price among all listings, right? Now I can either say I want to do this among this price by neighborhood, or I want to do this by let's say by different things, right, in my table, right? But I can even just say, okay, I just want to see the highest and the lowest. I don't want to summarize it by any column, right? So the best thing I can do, since I'm not summarizing it by any column, is I can do select, right? And I can kind of do max straight up and say, I want to see the max of price, right? I want to see the maximum of price, the maximum of price. And I want to call this a highest price. So remember as, right? Once you're using as, that means you are renaming something, right? You're introducing a new column and you are renaming it. So if I also come here and then I put a comma and also look for mean of price as well, and then I can also give this a name as well and call it as the lowest underscore price. That's the name. So from where? So where are we picking all this mean and max from? From our Airbnb listing table, right? Airbnb listing table. Now, if you can see the previous query that I run, you will see that it's showing that no column name because I didn't give this guy a name, right? That is why you can see that no column name right now. And that's the importance of as. If I come here now and I call this guy as, let's say, AVG price, average price, as average price, right? When I run this query again, it's going to have average price here, no column here. So look at this. Can you see? It's now average price. That is what as is actually kind of for. Now let me draw this problem solving number 3 that we are looking at here, and let's see. So here we are looking at the highest price. The highest price among all of our listing is $9,000, where the lowest price is $10,000. So you can see that among all of the listings in Seattle, the highest you can actually get is 9,000, and the lowest you can actually get is 10, just 10, right? So this kind of helps us to understand what is the highest and what is the lowest, right? So you can play your hands around checking the lowest and highest by maybe neighborhood. Let's say, for example, I want to group this by neighborhood, for example. If I come here and I introduce neighborhood here, neighborhood, right? And I give this a comma. So you don't have introduced a neighborhood here. Now I want to summarize this by neighborhood. I'm not just looking at certain number. I can't run this query just like this. Then I will need a group by again, right? Because I've introduced a column. Let's try that. If I run this, you will see that it's showing error. Now, if I come here, I'm going to need a group by because I have introduced a column, right? Group by, I like to put this in capital letter. Group by neighborhood, right? Neighborhood. get my spelling right. Now, group by neighborhood. So if I run this right now, you will see the minimum and the lowest price by neighborhood. And I can see that for Stevens, they have 956 for their lowest, and then for Fremont, they have 4,000 for their highest, and then 50 for their lowest. So you can actually see by different neighborhood, you can see the highest in each neighborhood and you can see the lowest in each neighborhood. You can see the highest in this neighborhood and you can see the lowest in this neighborhood. Another thing I can also introduce here is maybe I want to order it by, so I want to do an order by. So I want to order by something. So maybe I want to see the highest, I want to see the lowest from the lowest. So if I say I want to order it by lowest, let me just say I want to order this by the lowest underscore price, right? I want to order it by the lowest underscore price. So if you run this now, you will see that it has sorted it for me. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just ordering this by the lowest. So I can see the neighborhood that has the lowest price, and that is Central Business District, 10. Fairmont is 10. Bitter Lake is also 18. Mid Beacon is 26. So that I can actually see where I can actually get the lowest price from. So this is part of aggregation, and it actually make a lot of sense, right? So this is another problem solving that we just did, and this is how your query should look like. But I've added some interesting things into this query. I've summarized it by neighborhood and also order it by the lowest price. So the next problem we're going to look at in this problem solving 4 is we want to find the total revenue generated by all listings. So what is the total revenue generated by all listings? We've been looking at different listings before. Now let's look at the pricings and the revenue they generated. So if I jump into my Azure Studio right now, I'm going to copy this again and just put it down here and say this is problem solving 4. And what problem are we trying to solve here? We are trying to find the total revenue generated by each listings. So let me type that here. Total revenue generated by all listings, right? So what is the total revenue generated by all of the listings? All of the listings, what is their total revenue? So, and I'm going to get that from the price, right? So if I do select star, let me show you what the price table looks like from Airbnb underscore pricing, right? So select star from Airbnb underscore pricing. Remember those tables that we have. If you expand it here, we have the listing, we have the price, and we have review, right? Those are the tables that I'm querying. So if I do select star for pricing, so this is our pricing. And then you can see all of the pricings, and you can see all of their minimum night, the maximum night. You can also see their price. Now I want to see the total revenue generated by all of them. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I want to sum up the price, right? Sum price. So sum actually help you summarize and aggregate as well. So let's give this sum a name so that it doesn't return no column. So let's call this total underscore revenue, right? Total revenue from Airbnb listing. So if I run this right now, it's going to give me the total revenue of this. And you can see that this is 21,083,085.10, right? That is the total revenue of all of them. And that is what we're actually looking at. Okay, so that is problem solving number 4. So this is how your solution should look like at the end of this practice. So make sure you practice this and then see you in the next video.